armed conflicts and natural emergencies. Fear.
Yeah.
Dubbed the year of fear. The year of fear.
Yeah.
The year of
Well, I couldn't wait to get back to y'all because I got something that I want to talk about. And first of all, I wanted to wait till everything was done and said and all over with because I didn't want any backlash of people feeling like I was encouraging people not to vote. But I want to talk about voting and the election and what took place. Give y'all a little bit. I couldn't wait to give y'all a little bit of the Terrance J King Sr. theory. So now, let me start it off by, since I was already, doing a little workout, let me start it off with, let's talk about the mechanisms of utilizing strength. You see, in every culture there's a weakness and there's a strength. But most cultures use their strength different ways. And what we have came to notice, and we are recognizable for now, is that in the African American culture, strength is present when unity is amongst us. Now, of course, we've been knew that. That's the reason why there's so many strategies to divide us as coming to this time, because they have witnessed that we are stronger together. Now that we understand that, here's where it comes into play, where I have to speak about how to utilize strength first and the mechanisms and strategies that comes with that. First, understand, for example, I'll give you two examples, like the dumbbell. First of all, if I was lifting up the dumbbell, I'm using a little bit more strength than bringing it back down. If I was defending myself, I would use just enough strength to make a statement to say, hey, stay away from me. And if I was the aggressor, I would use mostly all of my strength to try to devour my opponent. See, those are different strengths, but you still have the same strength within you. But you know when to give a little and when to take a little back. For example, speaking of voting, what does this have to do with voting? Okay, there was a time where African Americans were entitled to be subhuman, 3/4 of an animal, property, and they couldn't vote. Okay, so they went from that to being able to pair two people up to make one vote. And they went from that to being able to equally vote like others. But in the country that insinuates black lives doesn't matter, but black votes do. And by the way, have anybody noticed that, or am I just tripping because I could have missed something, but there wasn't any black men being killed by cops during the whole election? So maybe I missed something, or maybe it just was they didn't want y'all to be distracted from making y'all way to the poll. But let's say before the election, all of this hurt and pain we were dealing with from being treated unrighteously, lies the question, should you have voted? Now, y'all hear me, and I know I don't supposed to hear y'all, but I do hear a couple of people that are saying, hold up, don't vote. My ancestors have fought, marched, and died for my rights to vote. So, for those who may be asking that question, let me pose this question. If your ancestors have marched and got beaten and killed for a right for you to be able to kill, does that mean you should kill every opportunity you get? Hmm. So it's, it reminds me of like a theory saying, just hypothetically speaking, if there were two animals running for the election, would you vote? Would your belief system prevent you from voting? Would you still vote? And once again, I know it's kind of crazy, just hypothetically speaking, would you still vote? If you do still vote, it's basically saying that you feel that voting is more powerful than prayer. Now, for my theory, what I'm understanding is the same way if people came together to unite for prayer as they did with voting, my personal opinion, and my opinions are facts once again, is that prayer would be so strong because there's so many people involved and united that those two animals would be cast out. Now, most of you don't believe that, and being that that is, you know, truth, that most of you don't believe that, I forbid if they ever present two animals running for president, because God knows we'll have an animal for a president, and mind you, not all for my vote, because I won't be voting for animals, but we have you have identified a strength that most of you don't utilize right because you think you're supposed to utilize it at all times, and you don't. And some may say I'm exercising my voting rights on behalf of my ancestors. And even with that being said, you still have to ask yourself the question: did your ancestors die, march, and got beaten for you to vote for a candidate like, or a candidate like? See, these are the questions you have to ask. And in fact, let's say if there was two black presidents running, would voting still maintain its emphasized significance, or would the polls be empty on drought? Because just me personally, I don't feel like it'll be the same. So if there's no one to vote for, ask yourself, why are you voting? Now, that's just a little theory that I have with the voting thing. I'm not saying don't vote, but if you have no reason to vote or nobody there to vote for, why are you voting? There's no difference from you're still at the Super Bowl and your team lost and you're hooting for the team that had beat your team already. It doesn't make sense to me. You're just following everybody else does. But once again, when you learn your strength, you know when to use your strength. And sometimes not using your strength as a unit makes a big difference, because now they understand your strength and it's noticeable and they recognize it. Now they want your strength. I'm certain I'm going to get a lot of backlash and people don't understand that. But anyway, just make sure, don't worry about paying your taxes for the next 4 years. And, if you're in a financial burden, just file for bankruptcy.